YouTube, what's going on? Flag 1122 back again for SynthPop Review, our wonderful, well, I think it's wonderful, SynthPop Review channel, dealing with all the music you may have forgotten. This may have slipped through the cracks, may have exited your brain stage right. This week I have decided to choose a band that I love from the early 80s, a band that sometimes people forget about. We talk about music that people forget about on this channel. Yazoo. The release that I have says Yaz, but the band is called Yazoo. I'll get into why it's called Yaz in a moment. First, I've decided to lump. Yazoo only came out with 2 LPs. So I decided to lump those two together and just generally review Yazoo. Vince Clarke, let's start with him. Started Depeche Mode, founding member of Depeche Mode, was the chief songwriter for their first LP, Speak and Spell. Later on, he did a little one-off project with the Assembly group. Eventually started Erasure and went to superstardom with that band with the silky-voiced Andy Bell. Love the man. But in between Depeche Mode and Erasure, he had another band, and it was called Yazoo. Vince left Depeche Mode at the end of 1981, and he went and found this woman by the name of Alison Moyet. And both of them were from Basildon. They were, Basildon people. And I think that Alison and Vince had been school chums. They'd been friends in school, and he knew that she could sing, and he asked her, said, "Hey, you want to start a new group with me?" And she, knowing that he had success with Depeche Mode, I'm sure she kind of jumped at the opportunity to start a new band. And I think Vince wanted a little bit more creative control. With Depeche Mode, he had 3 other lads to contend with, and he wanted to be the captain of the ship, kind of steered in the direction he wanted to take. So he gets Alison Moyet. She's really young at this point too, and as is Vince, but I think she was only like 19 or something like that. So they get together, they start writing music just right away, and I think that's part of the reason that they didn't last. They may have known each other in school, but I don't really think that they were best buds or anything. So they just started this thing and wrote Upstairs at Eric's. And Upstairs at Eric's came out in 1982. It was their debut album. It had a lot of brilliant singles on it. Only You being the most profound example of that, and possibly their best song. And that was a song you just heard that I played, Only You. And the song is just gorgeous, and it's haunting, and it's synth melodies too. And Alison Moyet, her voice is so deep and soulful. It's funny that she's in a band like Yazoo. Yazoo is, it's like a synth electronic band, but she really truly is a fantastic singer. She's a soulful singer. She could sing in any type of band. She could sing in a blues ensemble. She could sing probably rock ballads, and she certainly can sing soulful, longing love songs, which is this is definitely one of those. But anyway, after Upstairs at Eric's, they released their second LP, I think the following year in 1983, and it's called You and Me Both. And I unfortunately haven't owned that album in years. I have Upstairs at Eric's, but it's in really rough shape. Back to the name change. In America, they had to retitle the band name to Yaz, because apparently there was already a band, like an indie rock band called Yazoo in America, so they couldn't use that. I don't know what happened to that band. It probably faded away after a few weeks, but in America we know them as Yaz or Yazoo. Either or. I kind of like Yazoo. It sounds slightly sillier. Alison said that they came up with the name Yazoo because of some old blues jazz records they were listening to, one of them was called the Yazoo Factory. So supposedly that's where the title Yazoo came from. Anyway, back to kind of the history of the band. Like I said, Alison and Vince, they knew each other, but they weren't really buds. I think it was more of just purely like a financial collaboration, in my opinion. Vince needed to start a groove right away, and I'm sure he was nervous about leaving Depeche Mode. I mean, Speak and Spell the album hadn't really come out by the time he left, but it came out, and it found success, and God, he just left the group, and he's like, man, I gotta start something else, and you know what? I think Yazoo was just, I think they were just pure genius. I mean, you look at the influence today, and it's just wide. LCD Sound System has cited Yazoo being a big influence, and they've used a lot of their music, in movies and TV shows. I know Only You was used in an episode of Fringe from season 5. If anybody's familiar with the science fiction show Fringe, it's a brilliant show, you should watch it. They're using that song in that show. They stayed together for 2 albums, and they just decided to call it quits suddenly. I think, again, Vince being a very headstrong kind of character, possibly thinking that he had found somebody with Alison Moyet that he could kind of like rein in and kind of just control to a certain point. And she's a very bombastic, very independent woman. She was back then, and she is now, and she, I think, had a different opinion in her head. She wanted to take the band maybe possibly a different direction. I think most of it is just the fact that they were young. When you're young, you're kind of you're pig-headed and you're stubborn. And you have ideas in your head about the way the world should be and the way the world works, and you try to impose your influence on everything, and you just can't control everything. And I think that's what happened with Yazoo, and it's unfortunate. But the dissolution of Yazoo paved the way for the advent of Erasure, and I'm thankful for that, because as much as I love Yazoo, I'm an Erasure fanatic. Anyway, they went their separate ways, and Alison Moyet signed with Columbia Records to start a really fruitful independent career of her own. She had several albums after that. They met with varying degrees of success, but she definitely stood on her own 2 feet. And if you just listen to this voice. Anybody that has a voice like that and can sing with that amount of heart and emotion is going to make it, especially back then. I know now we've got, these plastic idols on TV, and they have false emotion, and they can kind of get where they want to go just by sort of scratching at people's eyeballs and clawing to the top. But she was able to make it, and stand on her own 2 feet. And Vince, as we all know, went on, like I said before, he did this little assembly project before he started Erasure, and then Andy Bell and Erasure, they've had like, a 30-year career now. What's really interesting about Yazoo is a few years back, around 2007, 2008, Mute Records re-released some older Erasure LPs, and some of the Yazoo LPs re-released them, kind of digitally mastered releases. And I think that Alison had been, kind of curious about Vince's career, and Vince was curious about Alison's career over the last like 25 years. And I think Vince had started some communications with her and about the possibility about maybe getting back together and singing the songs again, and just performing them again, seeing if they could like just kind of get a redo, and so they did that. Alison and Vince decided to kind of reform for a very limited engagement. It was called the Yazoo Reconnected Tour, and I think they had like 15 to 18 dates, in North America and across Europe. And as far as I know, they all sold out, and it was a success. I watched some of the live performances, and they just sounded brilliant to me. I think that some of Vince Clarke's synth work in Yazoo is probably some of his best in his career. There's just real waves of modulations, and just it's electronic music, but it's kind of music that even robots can dance to. When you hear this song, Nobody's Diary right here, just listen to that. It's very simple, but it's just magical, really, and that's why I love it. So they get together, back together for the Reconnected tour, and they did that, and they came out with like a 4 disc box set, and I know there's a documentary on that. They talk about how they formed Yazoo and how they split up, and how they only came out with 2 records, but how the music is meaningful to a lot of people. And when you watch some of their Reconnected tour, you see people, especially people who are in their 40s now and early 50s. This music was really, really powerful to them back then, and it still is powerful now. I think it would be brilliant if Andy, Allison, and Vince would kind of get together and do like a threesome of powerhouse synth ballads. It would be almost too much for me to even imagine. It'd be so cool. I think Allison's career still has a lot of life to it. Her voice just gets better and better. Just gets more interesting with age. A lot of singers get that way, And Vince is still very active with Erasure, when doing a lot of remixes. This is my favorite Yazoo song, Nobody's Diary. Allison's voice just breaks through right there. And I love that part right there. I just think it's gorgeous. I've listened to this song at least 78,000 times. I play it all the time. I play it to people who don't like this kind of music, and they really love this song. So that shows that it's a really nice, high-quality song. This collection right here is not the best collection in the world if you want to get into Yazoo. I would say, if you want to get into them, go buy Upstairs at Eric's, their first LP, and then You and Me Both. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them used. You can download them from iTunes. You can get the LPs for a really reasonable price online. One good thing about this collection right here, it does have several remixes. It has a Situation US 12-inch remix. It's okay. The Only You, the 99 version that came out for Only You is decent. This is just what I've listened to the most in the past couple of years, and it's got some nasty stains on the side here. I think this is chocolate. I'm not sure though. I did have this copy when I was in college, so I can't guarantee that the chocolate stain in it could be something else. I hope not, because I've been touching it to try to cover it up because it's embarrassing. It smells like chocolate, possibly some sort of Hershey's variety. So we'll fingers crossed, Anyway, Yazoo, if you haven't heard their music, listen to it, give it a try, a lot of bands have taken from music like this, I think Lady Gaga probably is familiar with Alison Moyet, just the way she kind of presents herself and sings, of course Lady Gaga can be a total nightmare and a freak of nature, but strong, just front women, in the 80s, they were kind of rare, we had a lot of like leading front men in the 80s, with Dave Hahn, of course Bono, and just the list goes on and on. But we did have the Cyndi Laupers and the Madonnas, and I think Alison Moyet fits very well right along there in the echelon of strong, powerful female singers. There's something about female voices to me that are just a little bit more interesting than male voices. They're just a little bit more